Hey everybody, I'm Nave, and I need to talk to you about your language. That's right, your vocabulary lessons in elementary school may have been more important than you originally thought. And if you're watching this video, then I assume you have some sort of interest in video games and speedrunning, at least to some degree. But sometimes we watch speedrunners and they use all these crazy terms and phrases and it just doesn't make sense, especially for new viewers. I mean, be honest, has this ever happened to you? Oh man, I can't wait to sit down and watch twitch.television. Oh wow, this streamer's playing my favorite childhood game, I should probably check this out. Alright, speedrunning, running with speed, here we go. I think they're doing one of those speed runs, I've heard of this before. Mad at me, I'm still just gonna run with my speed. I'm gonna speed my run. But what are they saying? Maybe if I open up chat and ask some questions, someone can help me out. The need for speed in my run is running. Excuse me, what? I'm just running with speed. Here we go. What are they saying? Oh, there's a clue bottle there. Pick up that bottle. We've all been there. So today I'm going to be teaching you a list of terms and phrases that you need to know for speedrunning, with an emphasis on my primary speed games from the Sly Cooper series. But don't worry. The majority of this list will cover a generic, wide range of terms and phrases used across all of speedrunning, or at least most of it. Before we get to the list, however, it will be important that you understand the layout of this video. It's pretty straightforward, but let's just take a look at our format. Here we have the term or phrase being discussed, and down here below it will be the definition or explanations for the term. Over here is a list of alternative terms or acronyms that mean the same thing, if there are any. Let's take a closer look at the background and imagery. If you see this yellow shaded background and the speedrun.com logo in the corner over here, then you'll know we're talking about a generic term. But if you see a blue shaded background and this Sly logo, then you'll know we're discussing a term that's specifically relating to the Sly Cooper series. These are handy visual indicators to help us understand what's being discussed. So, let's get started with the list. Speedrun. A playthrough of a whole video game or selected part of it performed with the intention of completing it as quickly as possible. PB. Personal best. The best time you've ever personally had for a run category. WR. World record. The world record time for a run category. Category. A specific type of run as it relates to a game, usually defined by the game's level of completion, rules and restrictions, and end goals. Subcategory. A category within a main category, a secondary or subordinate category. Category extension. Categories which may not fit within standard types and rules typically defined for a game. Extensions are typically used for community members to expand their selection of different ways to play their speed game, display popular playstyles or tricks in a specified format tailored for it, and are often used for memes. Any percent. A run category in which the goal is to beat the game as fast as possible, usually with very little to no restrictions. This is the most popular category for most speed games, and is referred to as any percent because you can beat the game with any percentage or amount of the game completed upon reaching the end of the game. IL. Individual level. A segment of a game that targets a specific level for the whole run. Leaderboard. A list showing the names and current scores or times of competitors as they rank in relation to each other. Speedrun.com. A website that provides leaderboards, resources, forums, and more for speedrunning various games across various platforms. For most games and communities, SRC is recognized as an official website to host their respective speed game resources. There are a few select games and communities, however, that use their own or different websites. Randomizer. A modified version of a game which randomly shuffles specified entities such as items, enemies, etc. into a pool and distributes them throughout appropriate locations within the game. Randomizers have become increasingly unpopular, especially with certain game series such as Pokemon, The Legend of Zelda, and Metroid. TAS. Tool-Assisted Speedrun. Speedrunning an emulated or modified game with the goal of creating a theoretically perfect playthrough. A task is created by humans with the ability to go through the game frame by frame so they are able to emulate a perfect path with perfect inputs, free from human error, and is capable of feats beyond human ability, and is really only limited by the game itself and the humans who create the tasks. NPC, non-player character. Any character or entity in a game that is not controlled by the player. AI, artificial intelligence. Responsive and adaptive video game experiences typically generated via NPCs that act intelligently or creatively as if controlled by the human player. The level of intelligence an AI can display varies on several factors, but a general rule of thumb is that older games have worse AI than newer games due to advancements in technology and game development. Input, a button press or similar action a player performs on a controller, keyboard, or similar device. OBS, Open Broadcast Software. The most popular streaming and recording software used by those who stream their speedruns and experiences to live stream platforms such as Twitch or YouTube. Slobs, Streamlabs OBS. Fundamentally the same as OBS, but tailored more for utilizing resources developed by Streamlabs. HDCP, High Bandwidth Digital Content Protection. A form of digital copy protection that is often integrated into consoles but can be bypassed through various methods or peripheral devices. Cap card, short for capture card. This device augments the ability to record and stream footage captured from a gaming console and passed through to a computer. Emulator, hardware or software that enables one computer system to behave like another computer system, often enabling the host system to run software or use peripheral devices designed for the guest system. Popular emulators include Project 64 for Nintendo 64, PCSX2 for PlayStation 2, RPCS3 for PlayStation 3, Dolphin for GameCube, and more. Cheat code, a code, method, or device used by gamers to achieve progression, unlockables, powers and abilities, or other hidden specialties and benefits. Cheat codes are typically activated by inputting a specific sequence of controller or keyboard inputs within a certain time limit, though some cheat codes also require very specific conditions to be met that go beyond simple inputs. Splice, the act of editing recorded video of different playthroughs and merging them together to create the illusion of one complete playthrough. Obviously, this is considered cheating for speedruns. Mod. This term could have a couple different meanings. Mod can be short for modification, which is the act or process of changing parts of something. This could refer to modding a console or the game itself. Mod can also be short for moderator, which is a person of authority who oversees the activities of a community or group. Tutorial, a method of transferring knowledge that may be used as part of a learning process. You could consider this video a tutorial on the lingo used by gamers and speedrunners. LiveSplit, a timer program commonly used by speedrunners to track their time while running a game. While LiveSplit is the most popular timer program, be aware that there are plenty of others available as well. Splits. This is another term with multiple meanings. A split is a predetermined segment of time in a game used to logically divide the game into multiple sections for easier tracking. Split as a verb is the action of splitting or progressing to the next segment on your timer program. Splits may also refer to the program file itself used to save your run times for personal use or sharing. An example of LiveSplit being used can be seen over here. At the top we have the game title and the category. In this case, The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker, any percent English no tuner. Below that is the list of splits. As you can see, you can customize each of them with different images and icons, as well as change the names. At the bottom is the timer itself. Splits.io, a website used to share split files for various games and categories. Autosplitter, a computer program designed to automatically split or progress a separate timer program when the appropriate conditions have been met. Autosplitters can do this in a number of ways, usually by using images on screen from the game feed or by reading the game data to know when to split. Load remover, a method or program used to accurately subtract the amount of time a console requires while the game is loading and the player is waiting for the ability to process inputs to the game. Just like an autosplitter, load removers can be image-based or read data from the game itself to accurately know when the game is loading. Speed Guides Live, SGL for short. A live split component or add-on which allows users to create a guide and write notes for individual splits to use as a reference during runs. Time save. The amount of time a runner saves on a split in comparison to another time, usually a gold or PB time. Time loss. The amount of time a runner has lost on a split in comparison to another time, usually a gold or PB time. Sum of best, often written as SOB. A metric that LiveSplit or a timer program can calculate as the sum of all gold splits a runner has in a category. Best possible time, often written as BPT. A metric that LiveSplit or timer program can dynamically calculate to display the runner's current best possible time achievable if they continue to the end of their run based on existing gold split times. Gold. Now you keep saying this word gold in the past few definitions and I don't know what it means. Well, a gold is the best segment or split that you've ever had for a particular segment. You can think of it as a PB for an individual split. Com Gold, short for Community Gold. A gold split that stands out as the best segment among an entire community. I don't know if other speedrun communities keep track of such a thing, but I know we do in the Sly community, which is why it's being written down as a Sly term. If you're part of a community that does do this, please let me know in the comments down below. Sly Golds, a website that maintains a list of the entire Sly Cooper community's best segments for each individual split across the series. Oh, and by the way, this video is sponsored by Sly Golds. Be sure to visit the website to see the very best of the best for all things Sly Cooper related. Link in the description below. World or episode refers to the different sequential episodic arcs and areas of the game's storyline. The term world is used to describe the progressive areas in Sly 1, whereas the term episode is used to describe the progressive areas of Sly 2, 3, and 4. Job or operation. A task within the game usually appointed to a specific character with a specific goal or sequence of events that are often required to be completed to reach the end. An operation is essentially the same as a job, but is unique in that it is the final job of an episode, and is usually portrayed as a climax to the events that take place in the episode. Fecta. This is a blanket term used to refer to two different types of fectas. A trifecta is a run in which a player completes the original Sly Cooper trilogy in one cohesive playthrough. A quadfecta is the same run with the addition of Sly 4. These are obviously extremely long runs that require a lot of time, dedication, and skill. Fectas also exist for other games that have multiple entries in the series. Master Thief Sprint, usually referred to as MTS. These are time trials in Sly 1. Master Thief Challenge, usually referred to as MTC. These are time trials and other level-specific challenges in Sly 3. Binoc, short for Binocucom, the first-person binoculars-like tool used by members of the Cooper Gang to view surroundings and communicate. Gadgets, purchasable upgrades, power-ups, and abilities for playable characters. The examples are written here in acronyms since that's how most runners often refer to them. In order, they are Stealth Slide, Adrenaline Burst, Trigger Bomb, Turnbuckle Launch, Smoke Bomb, Alarm Clock, Rocket Boots, Push Attack, and Grapple Cam. These are some of the most popular gadgets used, though it's not the full list of all gadgets in the games. GSM, Guard Spawn Manipulation. Moving the game's camera around the player character to influence guard spawns while maneuvering throughout the area. Sound Lock, a state where the game is playable but the audio has failed to load properly, resulting in potential to softlock if you encounter a trigger containing dialogue required to progress since the dialogue won't be able to play. Again, I'm actually unsure if this exists outside of Sly Cooper speedruns, or even if it exists on consoles other than the PlayStation 3. Let me know if you've ever encountered this sort of issue in other games or on other consoles. Soft Lock, a state where the game is playable but it's impossible for the player to make progress. A soft lock is usually recoverable in some way, often by reloading the game. Hard Lock, a state where the game has become completely unplayable and unresponsive. Often the console has crashed and the game has become completely frozen and can no longer process player inputs. Typically, the only way to fix this is to turn the console off and back on. Hard disk drive. An electromechanical data storage device that stores and retrieves digital data using magnetic storage and one or more rapidly rotating platters. Because hard drives have so many moving parts, they're often more prone to failure, especially later on in their lifetimes. Solid-state drive. A storage device that uses integrated circuit assemblies to store data persistently. SSDs are far less likely to crash than a standard hard drive, and are much faster at reading and writing data. BOP. A term used to mean that a runner has beaten themselves or another runner's time on the leaderboard. Sub-X. A phrase often used by speedrunners to give a general estimate on a goal or prediction for an end time of a run. An example of this would be to say sub 1 hour. Skip. A general term used to refer to bypassing a point or sequence of events in a game. Trick. Refers to an action or process a player performs in order to attempt to save time, skip a certain game section, or other various reasons. Warp. Traveling instantly between two locations. This is usually achievable by using a game mechanic, intended or not, to the player's advantage. Examples of different types of warps would include save warp, death warp, etc. CSS. Cutscene skip. Bypassing a non-interactive cinematic. ICSS. Instant cutscene skip. Bypassing a non-interactive cinematic, but in a frame-perfect or near-frame-perfect method required to accomplish the skip. Frame. An individual picture in a sequence of images. A frame is considered a standard measurement of time in which a game displays an image and runs them in sequence to give the appearance of motion picture. Games usually run at 30 or 60 frames per second, or FPS, meaning that a single frame would last for 1/30th or 1/60th of a second respectively, but FPS can greatly vary depending on your game, console, or settings. Iframes. Sometimes known as invincibility frames or invulnerability frames. Iframes are the period of time measured in frames in which the player character cannot be damaged. Usually iframes occur when the player character has taken damage or has newly loaded into an area, and the game allows them a sort of grace period to recover or orient themselves and continue. Animation. The scripted sequence of motions that will be completed by the player character based upon specific inputs provided by the player. Animations performed by NPCs are scripted movements used by the game's AI. Trigger. Activated script sequences. A predefined event or series of events that occur when triggered by the player location, player action, or when a specific amount of time has passed that play within the game's engine. Buffering. Preloading data into a certain area of the game's memory. This often refers to buffering an input, which is when a player executes an input during a non-interactive loading screen or cutscene, which the game then stores and executes on the first frame of available gameplay. Mashing. Sometimes known as spamming. The act of rapidly pressing an input repeatedly, often with the goal of hitting a first frame input, a one frame input, or simply to quickly process as many inputs as possible. Lag. A delay between the action of the player and the reaction of the game, console, or server. Glitch or bug. A short-lived fault in a system that leads to an unintended game state being achievable. A fault in a game's programming that can lead to undesired results or be used to the player's advantage. You probably know that speedrunners very commonly use glitches to their advantage in order to complete their run faster than normally possible. RNG, random number generation. A process by which a sequence of numbers or symbols that cannot be reasonably predicted are generated and used within a game's code to influence various events. Players must be able to adapt based on the RNG they have during runs. Cycle. A series of events that are regularly repeated in the same order. Route. A specific way or course taken in getting from a starting point to a destination. Strategy. A plan of action or policy designed to achieve a major overall goal. Strategies may often vary between runners. Manipulation, also known as manip, refers to manipulating a game's events, cycles, or RNG in some fashion to achieve favorable outcomes. Optimize, to make the best or most effective use of a situation, opportunity, or resource. To refine and improve a specific aspect of a run or runner. Grind, to replay a specific category or segment repeatedly in order to improve in some way. Claw grip, a method of holding a controller with the right hand in a claw-like shape to have the ability to press multiple buttons with multiple fingers in order to control the player character's movement most comfortably and optimally for the runner. Nist grip, a method of holding a controller with the purpose of controlling the player character's movement most comfortably and optimally by holding the controller in a standard fashion and using the right thumb to press multiple buttons at once. Notably founded and defined by a member of the Sly community, Nist. For more explanation on Nist grip, check out the video link in the description below. Hula jump, a prominent jump in a specific location found by a member of the Sly community, Hulatant. Usually these jumps are considered to be somewhat difficult and/or precise. Furball jump, maneuvering on unintended surfaces, slopes, and thief move objects by using the feral pounce gadget in a combination of inputs within 0.5 seconds. Found by a member of the Sly community, Furball the Ball. Ricky roll, utilizing Murray's ball form while jumping in order to extend the jump across a longer distance. Found by a member of the Sly community, the Rixer. Halogen select, selecting a playable character in the safe house on the first frame after a load by holding left or right on the D-pad and mashing X. Founded by a member of the Sly community, Halogen. Super jump, the act of moving a character with a specific type of jump or series of jumps across a distance without allowing the game to update where Sly's position is located. Ground position, the XYZ coordinates of a character's set position as defined by the game's memory. Stuck spot, a specific location usually wedged between two objects that have collision in which a character is suspended in the air, forcing the game to warp the player back to their previously set ground position after a short time. A common example of utilizing ground positioning, stuck spots, and super jumping all together can be found here in the World 1 hub of Sly 1. In an any percent run, players will typically set their ground position behind this cannon, which is normally locked by 7 keys. Then, using a series of super jumps, or a super jump chain as it's known, we can maneuver Sly without updating his ground position over to this area. We can use the stuck spot between this walkway and the floating wooden barrels in the water. When Sly is suspended in the air, the game will actually send him back to his last known ground position, as you can see here. The reason we do this is because the trajectory will actually send Sly through the cannon, allowing him to touch the trigger, which will send us to the boss level of this world. Proxy, expelling a player character from another point or points of collision, often with high speed and velocity. One of the most popular proxies in Sly 1 can be found here in A Rocky Start, the first level of World 2. Using this dog enemy, known as Cletus, we can actually proxy across this lake and beyond, especially in the original version. This is the remaster version of Sly 1, so we can't proxy quite as far, but the same concept still applies. By aggroing the enemy and using a certain setup, we'll actually be able to proxy across this lake with a lot of momentum. Sometimes it's necessary to swing your cane mid-air to cancel your momentum, so you don't end up falling too far into this void over here. Momentum preservation, a game mechanic that checks Sly's movement and player input to determine Sly's movement momentum to be preserved or cancelled by changing a specific value in the game's memory. There's a great video explaining this in further detail in the description below. Void drown, taking damage on a precise seam between a water plane and the void, resulting in Sly drowning very deep into the void, then being launched back to his grounded position with great speed and momentum. The ability to withstand the damage taken from the water plane is required to void drown, either by using a charm or by having the water safety upgrade. A great example of a void round can be found in World 4 skip in Sly 1. There's a million setups for World 4 skip, but I'm just going to go over the basics of what we look to be doing here. Basically, we want Sly to land on a precise seam between this water plane that's bobbing up and down as you can see here, and the void. This will cause Sly to drown and fall into the void, until his charm will expire, causing him to be sent back to his ground position with a lot of speed and momentum. As an example, we essentially want this to happen. Sly will hit the edge of the water plane and then fall into the void. Then he'll be sent back to his last known ground position with a lot of speed and momentum that he built up from falling. In this example, it allows us to usually hit the boss trigger, if I didn't miss, that is. Clip. This term typically has one of two meanings. The act of passing through an otherwise solid surface by circumventing proper collision detection, often used as a skip or trick to bypass a portion of the game. Clip also refers to a short video of a stream or recording. PlayStation Network, or PSN. Sony's online network service for PlayStation users that is primarily used for shopping, online multiplayer, storing and sharing data, and more. Sometimes PSN is used to refer to the newer remaster version of Sly Cooper. PSX refers to the different generations of PlayStation games and consoles, with increasing numbers corresponding to the latest generations: PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4, and PS5. PS2 and PS3 consoles are primarily used to run Sly Cooper, but you can play Sly games on PS4 using PS Now, Sony's cloud game service. Types of PS3s. There are 4 types of PS3s. Backwards compatible PS3, or BC PS3, is the original model PS3 that is large, bulky, and can play PS1 and PS2 discs. A fat PS3 is the next model of PS3 that is large and bulky, but is notably not backwards compatible. A slim is the next model of PS3 that is slimmer and lighter, though less powerful than previous iterations. Finally, the Super Slim is the latest and smallest model of PS3. The model of your PS3 has significant meaning for speedrunning Sly Cooper optimally, so if you have questions on this, feel free to ask in the Sly Cooper Speedruns Discord. I've posted the invite link in the description below. NTSC, the National Television System Committee. This term is used to refer to the version of games released in North America, Canada, Japan, South Korea, Mexico, Taiwan, the Philippines, and some Pacific Islands. PAL, Phase Alternate Line, used to refer to the version of games released in Europe, Africa, South America, Oceania, and most of Asia. For more information on the differences between NTSC and PAL, check out the links in the description. HP, the amount of health a character has, or amount of damage or hits the character can take before dying, fainting, or otherwise becoming incapacitated. Spawn, the live creation of a character, item, or NPC. Despawn, to be instantaneously destroyed or removed from the game world. Respawn, to reappear after having been killed or otherwise removed from the game world. Checkpoint, progressive locations where a player character can respawn after death or failure. Out of bounds, an area outside of the game's intended playable area. Hub, an open, centralized area in which the player will traverse frequently. Hard reset, turning a console or device off and back on, reinitializing the core hardware components of the system. Soft reset, restarting a device without the need of turning it off and back on, usually by pressing a button on the console itself or selecting a restart option in the software's menu. Backup, a secondary strategy reserved for when the primary strategy fails and the player is forced to rely on alternative methods to achieve their goal. Auto-scroller, a level or interactive area that progresses of its own volition, irrespective of the player character's inputs, actions, or location. X abuse. Refers to using a negative event or result to a player's advantage. Examples of this would include death abuse, damage abuse, fail abuse, etc. Hitbox. The invisible geometry that tells the game when and how things collide. Critical hit. Refers to a hit or attack which does extra damage and usually has a random chance to occur. Keybinding. A method to optimize your gameplay by customizing the controls of a particular game, usually by binding certain actions to specific inputs. Glitch high jump. A trick used to essentially triple jump and gain extra height as Sly in Sly 2 or 3. To show off a glitch high jump, let's compare it to a double jump. With a double jump, we can only get about this high, but with a glitch high jump, we can get this high. As you can see, the camera actually follows Sly to show that we are in fact gaining height and essentially triple jumping. Quad jump. Utilizing a thief move object to essentially jump 4 times by glitch high jumping with a precise and quick circle input to latch onto the thief move object and continue to gain height in Sly 2. Let me show you an example of a quad jump. In Sly 2 in Cairo, at the very beginning of the game, there are these ropes in which you would normally traverse through these back alleys. But we can actually use this rope in a quad jump to get on top of this roof, which is normally inaccessible with a double jump, and normally inaccessible with a glitch high jump. But with a quad jump, you see we can actually reach the top of this roof just fine. Boost jump. Utilizing buffered inputs and momentum preservation to essentially triple jump and gain extra height in Sly 1. Normally we can only jump about this high with a double jump. However, with a boost jump, you'll be able to see the camera actually moves up, indicating that we are in fact gaining height as the camera tries to follow Sly. Slope jump. The act of jumping and maneuvering up a steep slope not intended for players to cross. Slope jumping can be found in different forms across the different games, so I'll just show you an example from the current Sly 1 any% route. Again, normally we can only jump this high with a double jump. However, in slope jumping, you can jump up against a slope and with proper timing, you can gain extra height. In this case, you can see it leads us to an out-of-bound area. So normal double jump, slope jumping allows us to get up here. Disguise jump. While in midair, swinging your cane and then mashing the jump button and disguise equip button in order for Sly to be returned to the same height as his previous grounded position. This allows runners to reach high and or distant locations quickly in Sly 3. To demonstrate a practical use of a disguise jump, I've placed myself high up in the hub of episode 5 in Sly 3. Since our ground position is all the way up here, all we need to do is move without setting a ground position elsewhere. In this case, we can use paraglider to fly across the open space, which also loses altitude, as you can see. But once we do a disguise jump, we'll actually return to the height of our last ground position. In this case, this allows us to reach the top of the Skull Keep much more quickly. Cane jump. This term can have 2 different meanings. One form of cane jump is utilizing Sly's cane on a thief move object to quickly attach and detach in order to progress more quickly as compared to using the thief move object normally. Another form of cane jump is a precise jump on Cane Island in Sly 3 used to maneuver from a lower rope to a higher rooftop, bypassing the intended route. Moon jump. Jumping off a controlled enemy's back as the Guru by pressing X and triangle within a small frame window so as to gain an extreme amount of height. Square boost. In Sly 2, pressing the X button and square button at the exact same time on the same frame of input while playing as Sly, resulting in a faster jump forward. So if I were to run and then press X to jump, you can see that Sly loses a lot of momentum and doesn't move very quickly in the air. However, if I were to square boost, he maintains most of his momentum and doesn't lose a lot of his speed. Scuff boost. In Sly 3, pressing the X button and immediately the square button within a few frames to jump more quickly than a standard X input jump. Allow me to show you what a scuff boost looks like. Here you can see with a standard X input, Sly does a single jump that is pretty floaty and slow. But with a scuff boost, you can see Sly moves forward a little bit more quickly and doesn't jump quite as high. Circle boost. Pressing the X button and circle button at the exact same time on or near the same frame of input to quickly latch to thief move objects. One of my personal favorite examples of a circle boost can be found here in the hub of episode 2 in Sly 4. From all the way down here, we're able to perform a circle boost to this thief move object, which you can't even see from over there because it's obstructed by the building. But that just proves the power of circle boosts. Not only can you reach thief move objects very quickly, but you can cross a great distance while doing so. Paraglide boost. Pressing the X button and R1 button at the exact same time on or near the same frame of input to gain height while simultaneously deploying the paraglider. One of the better examples of a paraglide boost in my opinion can be found here in the juggling act job of Sly 4 episode 4. Normally the game wants me to use the archer costume to shoot this target and cross the rope, then cross this rope, then go down this rope to reach the next checkpoint area here. But that's pretty slow, so what if we just use our paraglider instead? Well, with a single jump, you'll see that we don't quite make it, we come up a bit short. With a full double jump, you'll see that, once again, we fall just a little bit short. However, with a paraglide boost, you can see that we actually make this rope pretty easily. Push boost. Using the push attack upgrade and cancelling its animation with another gadget to then paraglide boost in order to quickly close the distance to an endpoint. Bomb boost. Pressing the X button and triangle buttons at the exact same time on the same frame of input, resulting in a faster jump forward and deploying a bomb simultaneously. Much like with square boosting, the point of bomb boosting is to maintain our momentum forward as we maneuver, this time as Bentley. As you can see, if we run and jump, we kind of lose a lot of our momentum in the air. We're not very quick in the air. However, if we're able to press X and triangle on the same frame, you can see we actually keep a lot of our momentum forward. This allows us to jump while maintaining momentum. Rolling bomb. Deploying a bomb and quickly hitting it before it touches the ground, causing it to roll away from Bentley in the direction it was hit. With rolling bombs, you essentially just want to hit your bomb before it touches the ground. As you can see, it rolls away from Bentley. Costume launch. Utilizing Sly's costumes on a bouncy thief move point and a frame-perfect input to launch Sly across a great distance. Here's what a successful costume launch attempt looks like. Again, it's a frame-perfect input with the costume on that bouncy thief move object, and Sly gets launched through the sky. You can see we started all the way over there, and in the blink of an eye ended up all the way over here. Fake floor. The term used to describe the loss of collision around a character, including the ground or floor beneath them. This is a very involved trick that goes deep into detail, and there's just no way I could give it justice with this short and simplified explanation, but you can find out more about it in the Sly Cooper Speedruns Discord. Again, the link is in the description below. Double hit. The act of spamming or buffering inputs so as to hit an enemy twice at the same time or in rapid succession within a very small time window. An example of double hits can be found here in the Clockwork Showdown at the end of Sly 1. By spamming up D-pad and square, you can actually do damage with your attacks more so than normal. Double shot. No, not that kind. The act of cancelling a melee attack in order to fire more rapidly with a shock pistol using a specific series of inputs while playing as Carmelita in Sly 3. Let's take a closer look at how double shots work. We need to compare it to what regular shooting looks like. So when Carmelita is mashing the R1 button, you can see this is about as fast as she can shoot. So what we're going to do is we're going to utilize her melee attack animation and jumping to cancel the animation in order to shoot more quickly. What we'll do is we'll start shooting, melee attack, jump, and shoot again, but rapidly. So it should look something like this. You can see, in comparison to normal shooting, there's a lot more output. Noob mode. A game state in which the player is granted a higher damage resistance due to a previous death or failure. Basically, the game will actually keep track of how much you may be struggling and actively make the game easier for you to complete. Let's take a look at noob mode. So when you take damage either by an enemy or environmental hazard or whatever, obviously your health bar is going to decrease. You can see that after 2 hits I'm already at half health, and after 4 hits I die. However, after you've died and respawned, if you start taking damage again, you'll see that you're taking damage, but not quite as much. In fact, after 2 hits, I have a little bit more than half health this time, and after 4 hits, you'll see that I'm still alive and have a little bit of health left. This is basically how noob mode works. Bottle crash. When the game launches seemingly every entity into a very high Y-value position, resulting in the value being nan, or not a number, which is a representation of a missing value of data. Bottle crashes are usually caused by a unique method for the camera that follows the player character to crash. Essentially, it means that these entities, Sly included, are everywhere and nowhere at once. And while this might sound like a big, bad, scary thing, it's actually used to the player's advantage, as it allows us to collect freestanding entities such as clue bottles all at once without spending the time to traverse the map, hence the name Bottle Crash. So guys, that's it for the list. What terms or phrases did you learn from it? Which ones did you already know? Are there any that I left out? I'm sure there are. What terms or phrases are specific to your speed gamer community? I'd love to hear the answer to all these questions and more down in the comments below. I want to give a personal shout out to the entire SlyCuber community for helping me get into speedrunning. The Sly community is one of the most open and welcome online communities I've ever been a part of, and they've really made a deep impact in my life in ways that I really couldn't describe without making a separate blogging channel on YouTube. If you're looking for a game to start speedrunning, but you're a little bit daunted by the massive communities that some of the more popular games have, I couldn't recommend Sly enough. The community isn't too large, it isn't too small, and the people are amazing, and most importantly, the games are really fun, and you don't need an absurd amount of skill to start. I couldn't possibly list every single individual, but the scrolling list somewhere over here acts as a sort of credits for everyone that I could think of who has impacted me personally in some way. Thank you. Reminder, there are plenty of links and resources in the description below for everything you saw in today's video, so be sure to check those out. As you can imagine, this video took a lot of time and effort, so a like would be greatly appreciated. And be sure to subscribe if you're not already for more amazing 357 content. And be sure to follow me on Twitch, where I'm more active with content. With all that sellout stuff out of the way, I just wanted to say thank you so much again for watching, and we'll see you next time. This is so stupid.